Welcome to REM CON Raiders. It's pure nitro burning action. This is what it's all about, a nitro truck. A two-stroke single-cylinder engine running on nitro methane, pushing these trucks up to nearly 50 miles an hour. There are 6 teams in this show. Only 3 will go through to the quarter-final stage. We are in round 1 stage, and by the side of the track is Sophie.
I'm going to be on the track side, introducing you to the drivers and their teams, plus bringing you all the action and the drama as it unfolds on a track that's full of lumps, jumps and bumps and a wall of fire.
We'll be finding out more about the wall of fire later, but these cars do suffer damage. And down in the paddocks to find out what happens between the heats is Michelle.
Hello and welcome to the paddock. As you can see, it's absolutely mad down here because this is where all the mechanics are working furiously on their cars, making sure they're in tip-top condition for the following races. But it's not quite as easy as that because there's only a few minutes between each race. Now when the time is up, the gate comes down, and if the mechanics and their cars aren't through the gate when it comes down, they're out of the race.
Well, 48 teams have started this competition, but in this show we will see 6 teams battle it out. Only 3 will go through to the quarterfinals.
Here we have team number 1, Brooklyn Ford. Could you introduce?
My name's Andrew Lappin and my pit crew's hello.
Team number 2 is Team Eclipse. Now, you guys are professionals, aren't you?
I do it for a living.
Yeah, you've been doing it for a wee while.
Yeah, like a few years.
So you're confident you're going to pressure these guys?
You can never be confident. You can be reasonably confident, but you can't be totally confident. It's a racing thing. Anything can happen.
Stuart Whale,
Driver and Steve Ames, mechanic.
I don't know, Steve's a pretty good driver, so I've got a lot to live up to.
Yeah, I'm Darren. This is Dan. This is my mechanic.
And your team?
Crash and bash race.
Team number 5, we have Santos.
Yeah, right. Stuart and Leon.
Hello, how you doing? And then you drive or mechanic? Mechanic. Feeling confident? Yeah. All right then, we'll be watching you with interest. Team number 6, our final team, are the Dream Team. We have Ian and Gary. Hello.
Hello.
Confident?
I'm not.
Well, they're laughing now, but those are our 6 teams. This is heat number 1. There are 3 heats and a final in this show. Your objective is to get the best grid position you possibly can for the final to give you the best advantage. The teams will all have an opportunity during the heats of starting on the front, the middle or the back of the grid, and this is the track. Purpose built out of clay, expect some damage at Death Valley, some jumps over the tabletops. There's always drama at the firewall, and then look out to see if anyone ends up in the water. The cars nose themselves up, but this is what they're racing for, a CML gas truck. There's Gary Timms leaving the pits. You can see we have some problems with car number 3. These are the podiums on the left-hand side where all the drivers will stand. Their aerials extended. The controls on those radios fundamental, but this is heat number 1. We have Andy Lappin on the right, Gary Timms on the left as we have the green light. Andy Lappin makes a mistake, but it is Gary Timms over the tabletops first of all, round the outside of turn number 3. Look at the firewall ignite as Gary Timms goes through the flames. He makes a mistake. Waiting in the wings, of course, is Stuart Stout. Let's see, and there is Stuart now. He's all over the back, literally all over the back of Gary Timms. Gary Timms now fires over the water, but Stallard is in the water. That means he'll lose his second position to Stuart Whale. It is Gary Timms coming over in first position, Stuart Whale second, and Stuart Stallard in third position. But Gary Timms now seems to be very, very comfortable out the front. Sideways on as he comes over the firewall. I'm joined by Chris Kennedy.
Some of the top drivers in this sport can balance these trucks in the air, such as the top motocross riders, with the throttle and the brake. It's all in the takeoff speed.
Chris is our nitro truck expert. As we come back in, it is Gary Timms still out front, but there's been a battle now for second, third and fourth, and it looks like Darren Wright is now coming up into second position. There is Gary Timms looking on as he makes a mistake at the water jump, and Darren is all over him. Car number 4 is all over the back of Gary Timms. You can see the mistake there, getting caught out. You don't want to get that water in your electrics or there will be big trouble. So it's Gary Timms now from Darren Wright. Can Darren close that gap down as Gary goes through the firewall, round the outside of the bend? It's all about grit.
Shortest way around this track is going to take you into the bumps and jumps. Then you need a very good setup vehicle.
You can see Gary Timms there almost taking out Andy Lappin, but it's Gary Timms coming round the outside of turn 3. It looks like Darren Wright went off the track back there. Almost gifting this race now to Gary Timms as he goes through Death Valley and back over the water jump. He's hanging on nicely as we go on board. You can see how rough this track is at the driver level, or the would-be driver level. Coming over the tabletops, it is Gary Timms now, still out front from Darren, out front from the third place man, which is Andrew Lappin. But Gary Timms makes a wonderful cartwheel mistake there, but still back on it, flips right over the top. You can see how tough these trucks are. They take a lot of knocks and bashes. Darren Wright is now hounding back down on Gary Timms after that mistake. Andy Lappin in third position. Stuart Stallard in fourth. It looks like Gary Klein and Stuart Whale are now out of the race. But up front, Gary Timms is laying the hammer down as he comes round through Death Valley. He really has got this race in the bag. The question is, who will take second position? Would it be Andy Lappin or Darren Wright? Gary Timms takes the final lap board. Nice sliding over there. You can see that was Stuart Whale coming underneath Gary Timms as he went over Death Valley, coming through the fire for the final time at the end of heat number 1. Your aggregate positions after the 3 heats gives you your grid position for the final. But Gary Timms fires it over the line to take the win on heat number 1. Well done to Gary Timms. Darren Wright is in second, Stuart Stallard in third, Andy Lappin fourth.
Team Eclipse, you told me that you were professionals. You kind of thrashed that race, didn't you, against everyone else?
Well, I was just taking it nice and easy. I don't want to make any mistakes. I don't want to damage the car this early in the proceedings. Looking forward to getting through to the next round if I can. So we've just got to do what you've got to do.
Got about 4 minutes. Do you think it's gonna be ready?
Yeah.
Should we just confirm that with Uncle? What do you think? Is it gonna be ready?
Oh yeah, definitely.
And then you're gonna do well in the race?
I'll win it, yeah.
Very confident, but we'll soon find out. Oh, quick! Oh, they're coming. 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, let's go follow them.
There is only 5 minutes to fix your cars between the heats, and it looked like Gary Klein only just got through the gate. You can see the drivers there with their radios, the aerials on top of the podiums next to the track. That's where they control the cars from. Out go the trucks onto the track for the start of heat number 2. That is car number 6, Gary Klein. But here we go, we're waiting for the green light. It is Darren Wright on pole position, and it's Darren Wright that takes an early lead. You can see the face of Darren Wright looking around for his truck as he straight over the top of the Armco, handing the lead to Andy Lappin. Andy Lappin making a mistake inside the track there. This is going crazy. This is only lap 1. You can see on board how rough it is for these cars. Andy Lappin only just escaping the water trap, and it's Gary Timms in second position as they go over the line at the end of lap 1.
One of the most satisfying things to see from a driver's point of view, and maybe a spectator's point of view, is seeing the opposite loft that these drivers can actually get with these trucks. There's so much power from those rear wheels coming round.
Well, thanks, Chris, and it looks like it's Andy Lappin now being chased down by Gary Timms. Andy Lappin in the red and white car here. Gary Timms in the blue and white, and Gary is all over the gearbox of that car. It's first and second place, and they're smashing each other up as they come to the firewall. Andy Lappin, car number 1, takes the lead. Gary Timms making a mistake there, overly ambitious. He cuts underneath Andy Lappin. Andy very, very lucky. Remember, there's no reverse gear on these cars. Andy Lappin coming round over the water jump. The question is, can he negotiated between stricken Gary Klein, Andy Lappin totally in control. The question is, can he hang on to this lead for the rest of the race?
The tube sticking out the top of the truck there, Russ, is the aerial tube. Inside that is a little bit of wire connected to the receiver, which receives the command from the radio, which the driver holds.
Sorry to butt in there, Chris, but that is Andy Lappin making a big mistake, but he's managed to hang on to his lead. He came over the firewall, ended up inside the track. but it has meant that Gary Timms has now closed that lead down. It is Andy Lappin now, only about 5 foot away from Gary Timms, and Andy Lappin makes a mistake, and Gary Timms inherits the lead. A big mistake by Andy Lappin. Gary fires it through the firewall. Andy Lappin is now all over the show. The pressure is really on him. You can see that is where the mistake was made. You can see the blue and white car of Gary Timms going around the outside to take the lead, and it's Andy Lappin is all over the show. Gary Timms now only really has to keep his cool, keep on the brown stuff in between the white arm coat to take this win. That will be his second win of the day. The question is, can Andy Lappin do anything about it? He puts the hammer down. You can see the nitro coming out. It's Gary Timms from Andy Lappin. These engines are really working their hearts out.
Well, actually, Russ, these engines are the 2.1cc two-stroke fuel-powered engine.
That is a tiny engine running on nitromethane. That is Gary Timms taking the final lap forward. There is carnage behind him. Don't get confused. This is a back marker. Gary Timms is totally in control of this race. Comes through the firewall. You can see there Gary Timms wearing two hats. Don't ask me why. He comes over the water jump for the last time, rounding the last bend. There is the checkered flag. Well done to Gary Timms. That's 2 wins out of 2 so far. Well, there we are, Gary Timms, car number 2 from Andy Lappin and Darren Wright.
It was a good run that time. It was a little bit scrappy. Andy got a really good start and he was riding very, very smoothly. It was difficult to try and pick a spot, but he made a little mistake and that allowed him through. We had a few dramas at the beginning. We had a blocked out. We had to change that, so that was a bit nerve-wracking. Caught the old sweat on a bit, but it was a good run. I quite enjoyed that.
Well, as the teams work on their cars in the paddock, repairing the damage and getting them tuned up, make sure you join us after the break. Well, mine was white with no sugar. We are back here at REM CON Raiders, ready for action, all prepared for Heat 3. The question is, can Gary Timms make it 3 out of 3? Well, the teams prepare themselves. This is their last opportunity to get a good position, because in the final your grid position is determined from your results in the heats. You can see all the cars being held by the mechanics, revving up those nitro engines. They're looking at the lights. We have an amber, we're waiting for green. We have green, we are underway. It looks like Stuart Stallard is out front. Andy Lappin took somebody out with the T-bone, but Stuart Stallard is at least 10 foot in front of the pack. Can he keep his concentration? Can he keep it between the Armco as he comes through Death Valley? But no, he can't. He nerfs the sidewall, and it is Gary Timms mounting the back of Stuart Stallard. Darren Wright behind him, but coming over the line. Let's have a look at it in slow motion. Gary Timms almost takes him out, but it's Gary Timms and Stuart Stallard from Darren Wright. Gary Timms all over the shop as he comes over the top of the tabletops.
Nice landing. Perfect landing, Ross. Perfect.
So there he goes, Gary Timms on another flyer. Can anybody do anything about it? He comes over to complete yet another lap in the lead. Oh, he's almost got taken out by Andy Lappin. Good thinking and quick thinking by Gary. He did actually shut off there and just nose his way through between the back markers. That was very good thinking. He comes round now again to complete another lap.
Yeah, these engines are up to about 36,000 RPM. That's a little piston going up and down 600 times per second. It's hard to imagine just how quick that piston is going up and down that bore.
These tiny engines working their hearts out. Gary Timms coming up behind Gary Klein. You can see Klein coming through on the outside of the firewall and getting in Gary Timms' way. Gary Timms keeping an eagle eye on that truck. Remember that the truck is very difficult to steer around this tight track. These guys are very, very good at this. You've only got to go out by yourself a remote control car to find out how difficult it is to control. Gary Timms leaping through the firewall, still out front. Darren Wright in second position and Andrew Lappin in third, but it's complete chaos. There's Andrew Lappin coming round. You can see there the driver's view of what's going on. Gary Timms through the firewall, coming towards the end of heat 3. I can't see anybody being able to encroach on his lead, let alone pass Gary Timms. He's definitely on a mission, coming over the start-finish line for the penultimate time.
This is a very good surface that these trucks are racing on, and although they race on a variety of surfaces and championships across Europe and in America, this is the ideal surface which these trucks would race on indoors.
Well, Gary Timms is the master of this clay track, that's for sure. He comes over to take the win. Well done, Gary Timms. It looks like that car is now perfectly set up and ready for the final. The heat results will now be fed into the computer for our final grid, but well done to David Watson and Gary Timms.
Team Eclipse, you've done it again.
We tried to, yeah. It's, I've got all my faith in him. He's a cracking driver.
You're not bad, are you?
I just try to be neat and tidy. It's the art. It's the whole art of this, of what we do. Being neat and tidy pays off.
What is going wrong here?
Combination of things really, mainly the ball joints popping. Myself driving, not too brilliant really. Haven't raced trucks for a long time, so it's just thumbs really. Got to keep it steady for the final. Hopefully it'll be all right. So see how it goes.
You're going to catch up?
Hopefully.
I'm here with the Dream Team at the moment. They're working furiously on their car. I'm not quite sure what's wrong. What's wrong with it?
It keeps sweating its spare gears.
You've only got 3 minutes though. Is that enough time?
Yeah, we'll do it, yeah.
Oh, quick! Oh, they're coming. 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh!
Well, poor Michelle, she is desperate to catch somebody in that paddock, but these guys are on the button. 30 seconds to go to the start of the final. You can see the teams forming up on the grid. It is this man, Gary Timms, though, who is on pole position. Behind him is Stuart Whale, Andy Lappin, Stuart Stallard, Darren Wright and Gary Klein. We have the amber. Let's wait for the green for the start of the final. REM CON Raiders final is underway. Gary Timms is out front from Stuart Stallard, but it is Gary Timms who makes an early mistake. You can see him there looking on in disbelief. Is Andy Lappin going to take the lead? It looks like it is car number 4 now. Darren Wright, who has taken an early lead. You can see the mistake there from Gary Timms. Uncharacteristic, I'd like to say, but let's see what happens. It is Darren Wright from Andy Lappin from Gary Timms. This is the final. A mistake from Darren Wright pushes him back to third position. Andy Lappin now inherits second, but it is Gary Timms again round the outside of turn 3.
A lot of throttle through the jump, but you can see how it lands. It's twisted in the air, but when it comes down, it lands on all 4 going in the right direction.
Yes, Chris, it looks like Gary's car is perfectly set up. That's Andy Lappin coming through, followed by Darren Wright. A mistake from Gary, but fortunately manages to correct it without the help of the marshals. Round the outside of this track, you'll see about 6 to 8 marshals whose job it is to put these cars back on when they have trouble. Gary Timms coming up to laps and back markers right over the top. Slightly unconventional. Normally you go around the outside, Gary goes over the top. But Gary Timms now driving a copybook race. He comes through the fire. The question is, will the back markers actually compromise his track position? I think the answer is no. Weaving around the outside of turn 4, again gunning it over the track. But this is the battle now for second position. Darren Wright upside down, but Gary Timms unaffected. You can see the marshals there putting back the players, removing the carnage from the track. Car number 2, you can see the way that Darren mounted the top of the car and it just scooped onto the top of his lid. But anyway, Gary Timms now coming round to start lapping all these back markers. Nothing. Oh, a big mistake from Gary Timms there. I think that was Stuart Stallard getting in his way. Again, the marshals doing their job very, very quickly. You can see Gary Timms straight over the top, flipping off the back of the back marker, round the outside of a stricken Darren Wright. I don't think anyone is going to stop Gary Timms. But the question is, there we are, Gary Timms from Stuart Whale and Andy Lappin. At the moment, those are the 3 that will go through to the quarterfinals. Remember, this is a knockout. This is the final. Only the top 3 will go through. Stuart Stallard there coming through the fire. Gary Timms coming up inside, a perfect overtaking manoeuvre. On this surface, you really have to be very, very precise.
Good job these little trucks don't have driver figures inside, otherwise I think we'd need an ambulance.
That's why we've christened it Mad Max meets World Rally, but Gary Timms is still out front. I think the question is, can Stuart Stallard do anything about recovering that third position at the moment from Darren Wright, because it is only the top three that goes through, and it looks like Gary Timms is going to be topping out the leaderboard as he comes round the outside to lap Darren Wright. He actually takes out Andy Lappin. Andy Lappin coming through. You can see the misfortune on Andy Lappin's face. He was coming over Death Valley, took it out. It was complete carnage. 3 cars involved in that pile-up. Andy Lappin now will be lucky to go through. Let's see what happens. But Gary Timms is still on it, still making mistakes, but he's got the hand of God on him to come back on. He doesn't need the assistance of the marshals. A lovely shot of the suspension of Gary Timms' car working, beautifully set up over the top of the tabletop. He is on his last lap. Gary Timms will take this lead. The question is, who will be coming in the 4th position? He negotiates around the outside of a very unfortunate Gary Klein. I think Gary will be going home, but this is it. Gary Timms taking the checkered flag and nearly taking it out on the last lap, but he'll be smiling, a very happy man. Gary Timms first, Stuart Wells second, Andy Lappin third. The rest will be going home.
Do you think it was quite a clean race? Because I think a lot of the guys there were actually kind of hooting, weren't they?
Well, yeah, I mean, like, you know, I'm always accused of being a little bit paranoid, but I think considering the track conditions, I think it was, you know, nothing was deliberate. It was just that, you know, the conditions are getting the better of people. It's a final, you know, you're going to try a little bit harder.
Well, congratulations, guys. You gave us a great show.
Yeah, great show. Andy Lappin and James Carroll coming up for their trophies. Then it's Stuart Whale and Steve Haynes. But in number 1, getting the honours and the champagne, it is Gary Timms and David Watson. Well, as Gary Timms sprays the champagne, what a tremendous race. Well, the cream of British nitro truck racing is rising to the top. Gary Timms goes through in good company. He will meet some of the country's best in the quarterfinals later in the series. Make sure you look out for more eliminators of REM CON Raiders.
Don't forget REM CON Raiders every